when I take their pulse. Oh, no pun intended.
Based off the movie of the same name, released in May of 2007, Spider-Man 3 follows the story of the movie very closely, while, just like the previous movie-based games of our favorite wall crawler, expanding on his universe more than the movies could allow. Hey there everyone, this is Ray Carcillo for Classic Game Room. And Spider-Man 3 from Activision for the Wii had some big shoes to fill after Spider-Man 2 set such a high bar in the previous generation of consoles. Spider-Man 2 was arguably the greatest Spider-Man game of all time, although I personally think Spider-Man for the N64 and PS1 is the best, but we can argue that till we're blue in the face. Could 3 live up to that bar, though, that Spider-Man 2 set? Quite simply, it didn't even come close.
That's kinda cool. Wait. I've got an even better one.
We'll first look at the story, and for those who don't know, Spider-Man 3 made the classic superhero movie mistake of trying to fit too many villains into a story that had no need for them. The game was even worse, as it added villains like the Rhino, Lizard, Kraven the Hunter, and the Mad Bomber, as well as others on top of the movie's Venom, Sandman, and New Goblin, who is really still just the Green Goblin, but with Harry Osborn in the suit instead of his deceased dad, Norman. Usually, more villains is a good thing in a video game. But for a lot of the game, they just didn't fit into the story. The Mad Bomber and Rhino were thrown in simply to add some of the new gameplay mechanics instead of to forward the story at all. Aside from this flood of villains, the basic premise is that a meteor has come to Earth and had a mysterious organism known as a symbiote attached to it. As Spidey is out one night with Mary Jane, the black viscous goo that is the symbiote latches onto Spidey and consumes our hero while he sleeps, unleashing his dark side like never before. Aside from giving Spidey enhanced strength and senses beyond his normal superhero abilities, the suit drives Spidey into uncontrollable rages, and when he begins to disregard the safety of others, he tries to force the suit off of himself. When he does this, he just so happens to leave it behind to be found by Peter Parker's journalistic rival, Eddie Brock. Eddie has a few anger management issues, and the symbiote feeds off this like a fat kid on cake, and soon Eddie is transformed into the monstrous Venom. Venom uses the symbiote's knowledge of who Spider-Man truly is to recruit the Sandman and other villains to try to ruin Peter Parker and Spider-Man's lives at the same time. If you sit down and break the story into parts, you can actually see pieces of a lot of different classic comic arcs laid out into this. And again, the clutter is just too much for any comic fan to really appreciate. There is also an unnecessary subplot to rid the city of gang violence and to help the police out constantly. Where it felt fun and fluid when introduced in Spider-Man 2, these street crime mini-missions feel labored and repetitive, and poking fun at itself. Who cares that thugs are stealing pies off windowsills? And when was the last time someone put a pie on a windowsill in New York anyway?
Those apocalypse punks have stolen a shipment of delicious fruit pies. We'll take all the help we can get on this one.
On top of the convoluted story that took a few more creative liberties than most diehards would want, the gameplay is gimmicky for the Wii, as you use the Wiimote and Nunchuck to web-sling with each arm individually, and this makes for a less than stellar web-swinging experience. The combat controls are also unnecessarily complicated, and this will turn into a one-button masher very quickly as you progress through the game. To go along with this, the game is also riddled with glitches, especially as you move into the later stages of the game as you hunt down Venom. The peripherals are also a mixed bag. The audio is simply spectacular. Music from the movie is accompanied by all the actors from the movie lending their voices, from Tobey Maguire as Spidey to J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. The audio is just a wonderful experience. Add in Bruce Campbell returning as the narrator, providing his patented witty one-liners, and the game is a joy to listen to. Unfortunately, the audio seems to be the only bright spot for the game, as the graphics are subpar, especially for the Wii, as New York looks blocky and lacks the detail that you really would expect from the current generation of consoles. Throw in no multiplayer to speak of, and it is hard to find a silver lining beyond Bruce Campbell in this game. Spider-Man 3 is hard to recommend for even the most diehard of Spider-Man fans. The game should take you no more than 10 hours to get 100% on, and it's definitely not worth a purchase. But if you're curious to see what Bruce Campbell has to say, it might be worth a discounted rental somewhere down the line.
Today's Melee Combo upgrade is brought to you by the number 5 and the letters O and W.